By day 2 of the Camino, I was limping, crying, and wondering what the hell I got myself into. But finishing 500 miles across Spain taught me exactly what makes the difference between just surviving the walk and actually enjoying it. Hey, I'm Tracy, and I just finished a solo walk of the French Way a couple weeks ago. And in this video, I'm sharing the 20 tips that will help you prepare smarter, walk easier, and make the most of every single day without having to learn everything the hard way. So whether you're counting down the days or just starting to plan, these tips will make your Camino a lot smoother from day one. And the last one is the kind of lesson that stays with you long after you finish walking. So make sure you stick around till the end. So let's start with the first category, prep and mindset, because the Camino really begins long before you take your first step. Tip number 1, train with your actual gear. If there is one thing you can do before you even step foot on the Camino, it is this. Train with the actual gear you'll be using on the trail. When it comes to the pack, don't just wear it once to test the weight. Walk with it often. Even short walks will teach you where it rubs, how the straps feel, and how to adjust things when you start to ache. By the time I started walking, I already knew how to tweak my straps when my shoulders hurt. And that training built confidence. And by the end, I wasn't even thinking about the weight of the pack anymore. I was tossing in snacks and extras like it was nothing. But with the shoes, now that was a totally different story. I actually went through multiple pairs from REI. I returned 2, I panic ordered 3 more from Amazon 3 weeks before my flight, and I landed on the Merrell Moab 2 Speed Trail Runners. But by the time I started my Camino, I thought they were broken in, and they weren't. My first week was absolute misery. I had blisters on every toe, I had this gnarly triple blister on my pinky, and also a few on the sides of my feet. And it felt like my feet were slamming into concrete all day long. Looking back, I think it wasn't just the shoes, I think it was the combo. I hadn't tested them long enough with the socks I planned to wear. Along the way, other pilgrims swore by merino wool toe socks, saying they had 0 blisters, but by then my feet were already wrecked. So my advice is don't just break in your shoes, break in your whole setup. Find your exact shoe, insole, and sock combo early and train with it on a variety of surfaces, because the Camino will test you on every surface imaginable. Which leads us to number 2, prepare for elevation, not just distance. If you're walking the Camino Francés, you need to train for hills, both up and down. And I thought I had trained well. I was walking long distances with my pack, I was doing strength training for my knees, and felt confident in my mileage, but what I didn't train for was elevation. I had intentionally done very little research before starting. I wanted to experience the Camino with fresh eyes and without expectations or mental pictures of every stage. But because of that, I completely underestimated the hills. Day 1 over the Pyrenees was tough, but my adrenaline was super high. I pushed way past my limits trying to keep up, and by day 2, the pain caught up with me. I was limping into Zubiri, crying, and genuinely worried I'd injured myself. The descents were killer, especially if you already have knee issues like I do. So my advice is don't just train for miles, add hill, and practice carrying your full pack on the incline and the decline. Strength work is great, but it's not the same as actually walking downhill for hours. Hill training will make those first few days so much smoother and save you a lot of tears later. Another thing that can save you tears is number 3. Bring and use recovery tools. If you have any kind of knee, hip, or back history, bring something for recovery. You might not think you'll need it, but when you do, you will be so glad it's there. I brought a small electronic muscle stimulator for my back because I was worried about a flare-up. But when my knee pain started in the first week, I thought maybe I could try it there too, and it worked. Every few miles, I'd stop for about 20 minutes to use it, then follow up with anti-inflammatory cream before walking again. When I used it one evening while everyone was hanging out after the walk, people were fascinated. Most had never seen one before, and they had wished they brought something similar. That little device, along with my knee brace and cream, completely saved my experience. So whatever you think you might need, a massage ball or a brace or a compression sleeve, pack it. You might not use it every day, but if something flares up, you will be ready instead of desperate. Mindset is everything on the Camino, which leads us to number 4. Get your priorities straight. For me, the Camino wasn't just a hike. It was the bridge between quitting my job and starting a whole new chapter of life. I wanted to rebuild self-trust and confidence and get clarity before traveling the world. And after a year of isolation and grief, stepping into this super social environment was draining. I craved quiet and time to listen to audiobooks and meditations and honestly the voice in my own head again. But at first, I kept trying to do it right, staying in busy albergues, joining big dinners, walking with groups, because I thought that's what you were supposed to do. Then I started asking people why they were there. And some came for community, others for faith or adventure. And I realized that my reason was different. I was there to reconnect with myself. My Camino was about walking and reflecting and growing. And when I finally owned that, every decision got easier and the guilt disappeared. Your reason might be totally different. Maybe it's about connection or spirituality or simply the challenge. But knowing your why before you start helps every choice feel aligned with your Camino, not someone else's. Now, once your mindset's clear, it's all about what happens on the trail. These next tips are all about logistics, the small, everyday choices that make the Camino flow more smoothly. Tip number 5, pace yourself on day 1. If you're starting the Camino in St. Jean, day 1 over the Pyrenees is absolutely stunning. I don't think I've said wow so many times in a single day, but it can also be extremely brutal. Towards the later half of the day, I was walking with someone totally caught up in conversation and the beauty of it all. I was so mesmerized that I didn't notice that I was going way faster than my body was ready for. The adrenaline carried me through the climb, but the downhill absolutely wrecked me. My quads were shaking, my knees were screaming, and I was still trying to keep up. And the next day I regretted it. I could barely walk.
I'm in so much pain. My knee hurts, my hip hurts, my feet hurt. I have a triple blister on my pinky. I'm just hobbling on this road by myself. Everyone keeps passing me.
So if you're starting in St. Jean, take it slow. It is one of the most breathtaking days on the Camino, but it is also one of the hardest. Don't let excitement or someone else's pace push you past your limit. The Camino rewards consistency, not speed. And just like walking pace, everybody's social pace is different too. Tip number 6, you don't owe anyone your company on the trail. One of the best pieces of advice I got came on day 1 from a pilgrim who had walked the Camino several times. He said it's completely okay to tell people you want to walk alone. And a few hours later, I practiced saying it, to him actually, and he just smiled and wished me buen Camino and walked ahead. And that moment set the tone for my whole trip. Throughout the walk, I'd meet people, we'd walk together for a little bit, and then we'd part ways naturally. It was never awkward. Everyone finds their own rhythm out there, and some days you might want solitude, others you'll crave company, but both are perfectly normal. The sooner you get comfortable communicating that, the lighter and freer your Camino feels. Once you're walking your own pace, the next challenge is figuring out how far to go each day. And that thing can get tricky. Tip number 7, be careful using ChatGPT and Google for mapping distances. One thing I learned quickly is that Google Maps and the Camino do not agree on distances. I was using Google to plan my next stops. I usually would type in where I was staying and then checking different towns or accommodation options for the next day. And it always was off by an extra 2 or 3 miles. And that might not sound like much, but when you've already walked 15, those surprise miles at the end of the day feel brutal, both physically and mentally. And one time I used ChatGPT to plan the stop for my next day. It had told me that the town was only a half a mile from the main stage where everybody else was staying, and it ended up being 5 miles. So I had already booked my room, so I had to keep going, and it turned into a nearly 20-mile day I wasn't prepared for. So here's my advice. Trust the Camino guidebook and the stage maps instead. Google might be great for cities, but on the Camino, it will absolutely lie to you. Another thing that can completely throw your day off is timing, especially when it comes to food. Tip number 8, plan around Spain's food rhythm and siesta hours. Spain runs on a very different schedule than most of us are used to, and it took me a while to adjust to that. Lunch is usually the main meal of the day. Many cafes and restaurants close afterwards for siesta. And in some of the smaller Camino towns, kitchens can close as early as 2, and they might not reopen again until 7 or 8 at night. After one especially long day, more than 22 miles, I finally reached my accommodation around 4 in the afternoon, starving, only to realize everything was closed. I sat there eating my sad little trail snacks for an early dinner and went straight to bed. Another time, a few of us tried 5 different restaurants between 5 and 6 p.m. and no one would serve us. We were so hungry, we just started laughing, mostly from the exhaustion. So here's what I'd recommend. Eat a late lunch, usually around 1 or 1:30, and it can hold you over until the restaurants open again. Always keep a few snacks in your bag for that long afternoon gap. And stock up on Saturdays because grocery stores are usually closed on Sundays. Once you plan your days around Spain's rhythm, everything flows smoother. You'll spend less time hungry and frustrated and more time actually enjoying the walk. The next thing that will make your days easier is how you pack up each morning. Tip number 9, stick to the same packing routine every day. Having a set packing routine became one of my little anchors on the Camino. I pack my bag in the same order every morning. Towel and sleeping bag liner at the bottom, followed by toiletries, then clothes, then my electronics and accessories. And it just made leaving so much faster and calmer. I didn't have to think. I just knew where everything went, and it was so easy to check that I had everything. When you're staying in hostels, this routine also helps you pack quietly while others are still asleep. It keeps things calm and efficient and prevents those tiny morning stresses that add up after weeks of walking. If you want to see exactly what I pack and what I do differently after 500 miles, I actually just made a full video on that, so I'll link it above and put it in the description. Now, even with the routine, it's easy to miss things. One morning, I decided to shower before packing, which I hadn't been doing, and I ended up leaving a shirt in the bathroom. So even if you feel like you've got it down, always do one last check before leaving. Look under the bed, behind the door, and in the bathroom. Now, even with good routines, your body will eventually start asking for a break, and how you rest can make all the difference. Tip number 10. Take shorter walking days instead of full rest days. In my first week, my knee pain was so bad, I'd honestly worried I'd injured myself. And everyone else that day was walking from Logroño to Najera, but I decided to stop in Navarrete instead, and it ended up being one of my best decisions. The walk was only about 8 miles, but it gave my body enough recovery without breaking my rhythm. I didn't want to take a full day off yet, partly because I didn't want to lose momentum, and partly because I didn't have a lot of extra days to spare. But shortening the distance was the perfect middle ground. So here's my advice. It's totally okay to take a full rest day if that's what your body needs. But if you're someone who likes to keep moving, a reset day, fewer miles, can be just as restorative. Resting doesn't have to mean stopping. Sometimes it just means giving yourself a lighter day to recharge. And while we're on the topic of practical things that make life easier, here's one that seems small but can save you a lot of stress. Tip number 11, always keep some cash on hand. A lot of cafes, donativos, and even smaller albergues along the Camino are cash only. I always kept a bit of cash on me, but a few friends didn't, and it caused them a lot of unnecessary stress. There were times when they'd get to a cafe ready to order food or coffee and realize they couldn't pay, or they'd need to borrow money at check-in. ATMs aren't always convenient or close by, especially in the smaller towns, so it's definitely worth planning ahead. It's one of those things that you don't appreciate until you really need it. Another small thing that makes a huge difference at the end of the day is what you wear once your shoes come off. Number 12, bring comfortable flip-flops or sandals. I brought cheap $4 flip-flops, the kind that you grab at Old Navy in the checkout line, and they were great as shower shoes, and they were super lightweight, which is why I chose them. But when it came to walking around the towns or sightseeing in bigger cities, they were awful. They dug into my toes, they had no support, and after just a few blocks, my feet hurt all over again. So take it from me. Pick a pair that's not just light, but actually comfortable enough to walk in for a while. You'll live in them after hiking all day, and your feet will thank you for it. And while we're on the topic of comfort, one of the biggest ways to actually enjoy your days more is to take the stress out of where you'll sleep. Tip number 13, book ahead, especially if you want private rooms. So this one can get a little controversial because some pilgrims prefer to walk without reservations so they can just stay wherever they feel like ending up. But for me, booking ahead made the experience so much better. I saw people rushing into towns just to grab the last available bed, and it always seemed stressful. They weren't stopping to enjoy the walk because they were so focused on where they'd sleep. Booking ahead also allowed me to read reviews to find clean and safe and bedbug-free options. And knowing I already had a room waiting gave me so much peace of mind. It also meant I could slow down and take detours and stop for breaks without worrying. If you want private rooms, it's even more important, especially after Saria when the crowds pick up. It gets harder and more expensive to find something last minute. So while walking spontaneously might sound romantic, having a plan might actually give you more freedom because you'll spend your day walking, not worrying. And that ties directly into the next tip, because even when you do book ahead, what you book can make or break your Camino. Number 14, prioritize sleep. Private rooms are worth it if you need them. My worst night of sleep on the Camino was in a town called Lerigos in a place called La Morena. I got zero sleep thanks to an extreme snorer in the room. Around 2 in the morning, I was lying there completely exhausted on my phone trying to find accommodation for the next night, and there was nothing. I felt so stressed imagining 2 nights of no sleep in a row. And that's when I realized sleep on the Camino shouldn't be a luxury. It is just as important as the walking. It affects everything, your body, your mood, and how much you actually enjoy the Camino. Now, some people can sleep through anything, but if you're a light sleeper like me, don't feel guilty about booking private room. Even with earplugs, there were nights when the snoring was unreal in the shared accommodation. Private rooms helped me actually recover, which meant I could keep walking and enjoy it instead of dragging myself through each day half awake. So if you need real rest, make it a priority. You will thank yourself 100 times over. And if you are one of the snorers, maybe consider a private room too. It's a kindness to everyone, including yourself. Talking private room leads perfectly into my next point, because for every pilgrim you'll meet, you'll hear a different opinion on what's the right way to do the Camino. Tip number 15, do it your way. One of the most important lessons I learned out there is that there is no single right way to walk the Camino. You'll meet people who swear you should never take a taxi or a bus, never send your bag forward, and that booking ahead is cheating. But you know what? You have to do what keeps you going. I pre-booked private rooms so I could actually sleep, and I'm glad I did. And I had a friend who got food poisoning and needed to send her bag ahead and take the bus a few kilometers one day, and it didn't make her Camino any less real or meaningful. The Camino becomes exactly what you need it to be, and that's part of the magic. So tune out the purists and walk your own way. The only wrong way to do the Camino is someone else's way. So once you've got your routine down, something shifts, and the walk stops being about logistics and starts being about connection. These next lessons are all about capturing the moments and meaning that make the Camino unforgettable. Number 16, journal or voice note every day. I can't stress this one enough. Take just a few minutes each night to write or record something about your day, even just 2 lines. I started journaling at the beginning through the first half of my Camino, but my last entry is from mid-September and I already regret it. So many little stories or people or moments that felt unforgettable at the time have started to fade. The Camino moves fast and the days tend to blur together, but those quick little notes, how you felt that day or what you saw or who you met, they bring it all rushing back later. So whether it's writing in a notebook or recording a short memo, make it part of your nightly ritual. Future you will be so grateful you did. Now, writing things down is one way to remember the Camino, but the photos and videos tell their own stories too, if you can actually find them later. Tip number 17, organize your photos and videos every night. On my very first day on the Camino, I took around 500 photos, and that is not an exaggeration. Everything felt magical, every view and village and cat. You just want to capture it all. By the time I finished, I had over 2,000 photos and videos, which is horrifying, I know. And going through them now is proving to be completely overwhelming. When I began pulling videos for my packing video, it took forever and I was getting frustrated not being able to find certain things I swore I'd capture. So here's what I wish I'd done. Spend 15 or 30 minutes each night deleting duplicates, organizing photos into folders, and favoriting my best ones. Even just doing it every few days would have made a huge difference. It's an easy thing to put off, but it will save you hours later and help you actually enjoy reliving those moments when you're home. And if you want photos or videos of yourself, not just the scenery, this next one's worth the tiny bit of extra weight. Tip number 18, bring a lightweight tripod and a Bluetooth remote. So I brought one of those flexible tripods that you can wrap around things, and it worked really well most of the time, especially for quick shots or just setting up on fences and benches. But on the long open stretches like La Meseta, there is nothing to wrap it around. And that's when I found myself wishing I had brought my small lightweight standing tripod instead. Something I could quickly set up and take down and move along. So if you're doing the Camino solo and want photos and videos of yourself, it's completely worth it. You can always ask people to take your photo, but sometimes you're totally alone for hours, and having a tripod just gives you the freedom to capture those moments. Also, a Bluetooth remote just makes it 10 times easier to get natural shots without rushing against a 10-second timer. One of those things that takes up barely any space, but it gives you a huge return, especially when you're looking back later and actually in your own memory. Speaking of capturing moments, some of my favorite ones weren't about the views or the people at all. They were about the cat. Tip number 19. If you like cats, buy cat treats early. You'll see cats everywhere on the Camino, in tiny villages, in cafes, lounging in sunny doorways. And for me, they became one of the sweetest, happiest parts of my journey. I was walking the Camino partly because both of my cats had actually passed last year, so every cat I met felt like a little bit of a hello from them. I ended up taking more breaks to sit with cats than to stop at cafes. That ended up being my version of rest. And about halfway through, I finally thought to buy some cat treats from a local grocery store, and I'd really wish I'd done it sooner. They're really easy to find, and they actually don't weigh a lot. And this just became my simple way to give back to the animals who brought me so much joy. But just one morning, it can be really, really hard to walk away. Some cats don't look that cared for, and you'll just want to scoop them up and take them home. I was very tempted a few times. But giving them a little love and some treats is a beautiful way to connect and honor the spirit of Camino in your own way. And that leads to the last thing I'll leave you with, and maybe the hardest, but also the most meaningful tip. Number 20, Don't get too attached to your day one people or people in general. The Camino has this beautiful way of connecting you with people instantly. You share meals and stories and laughter and sometimes even tears. And then the next day they're gone. And at first it's hard. You start walking with someone and it feels like you've known them forever. But then they take a rest day or you walk further or life just separates you. Early on, I had to learn to stop clinging to the idea of keeping everyone I met. One of the Camino's lessons is just learning to hold beauty lightly, to let moments and people pass through without needing to hold on to them. I like to think about it like this. Some people are meant to walk a few steps with you, some a few days, and a few will stay in your life long after the Camino ends. Each one matters though. Appreciate the moments while they're happening. Let them be enough even if they don't last. Because that's the Camino, and really that's life. I'll be making another video soon about these bigger Camino lessons, the more emotional and spiritual side that goes beyond the gear and logistics. So if that sounds like something you connect with, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss it. So those are 20 of the biggest things that actually made a difference for me on my Camino, not just in how I packed or walked, but in how I experienced it. Everyone's Camino is different, and that's what makes it so special. It meets you exactly where you are and gives you exactly what you need, even if it's not what you expected. If you've already walked the Camino, I would love to hear your most surprising or helpful tip. Drop it in the comments. Let's help each other out. And if you're planning your first Camino, I hope this video helped you feel a little more prepared, a little less nervous, and a lot more excited for what's ahead. Buen Camino, everyone.